wonder if I would have a pen pal. A lot of criminals get pen pals. I guess some people love to write letters, but I don't know anyone who does. I love to get mail. Not bills, just regular mail. But nobody writes anymore. Prison would be just the ticket to strike up some sort of correspondence. I'd compile everything and make a book out of all the letters. I could call it Letters from the Pen. What could I do to be sent to prison? I wouldn't want to hurt anybody, but that would be a surefire way. Who could I kill? Maybe I would just attempt to kill them. How much time would I get for attempted murder? What if it's not enough time to get my Ph.D.? I could rob a bank, too. Armed robbery with attempted murder. That's good. And if I'm lucky enough to get away with it, I'd have the money from the bank robbery so I wouldn't need my Ph.D. You know what? Now that I think about it, even if I got my Ph.D., I would have to work, and working would mean obligations and responsibilities, so I may as well just go to prison for life. I'd still read all those books. I'd be real smart, and I'd be less stressed because I wouldn't have all that pressure about what to wear. Without the stress, I'd probably look better, too, although who cares how you look? You're in prison. You're in the slammer, the joint, the big house, the clink, the cement Hilton, the lockup, the cooler, the jewelry box, the crate and barrel, the cork jug, the honey pot. In prison, you have nothing to do all day. I suppose you do have to make your bed, but it's a cot. How long could that take? 2 minutes? Then you've got another 23 hours and 58 minutes and no obligations, no responsibilities, and no deadlines. That is, except license plate making, and frankly, that's the easiest job I've ever heard of. Easier than comedy. Oh, man, prison would be sweet. But for now, I'm on the outside, and I'll just have to deal with it the best I can. It's all I know. My most embarrassing case scenario. The other day a man asked, "What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?" I thought for a minute about the right way to respond and finally settled on, "Would you please leave the ladies' room?" He informed me that not only was I not in the ladies' room, I was actually in his house. Eventually, the whole mess was settled when I explained that I had a severe case of myopia, or farsightedness, as the kids like to say, but I was too vain to wear my glasses. Also, my hair had been kind of flat that day, and the combination of flat hair and glasses made me look a little like John Denver. He understood completely, first, because he was a highly evolved man, and second, because I'd already started writing him a blank check for whatever amount he thought would be fair to keep the whole humiliating debacle out of the papers. Anyway, it got me thinking. There are all sorts of books offering advice on how to deal with life-threatening situations, but where's the advice on dealing with embarrassing ones? I mean, things like landing a burning plane, wrestling a crocodile, or jumping from a moving train maybe happen 5, 6 times in your life, but if you're like me, embarrassing things happen hundreds of times each day. I'm too busy being embarrassed to write a whole book on the subject, but here are a few things I've learned about how to survive life's embarrassing moments. Note: as there are more embarrassing situations than can be noted in one chapter, an independent research company that I made up and then hired puts the figure of possible embarrassing situations somewhere between a gazillion and 1.5 bazillion. I have chosen 5 at random. And by random, I mean, of course, the ones that have happened to me within the last hour. Situation: forgetting someone's name. You're at a party. Don't ask me how you were invited. Either your host is very forgiving or he has a very short memory. Or else he realizes that it was partially his fault. Why else would he be bragging about his new fireproof mattress if he didn't expect you to try it out? And yes, in hindsight, it is pretty obvious that just because the mattress is fireproof, it doesn't mean that the sheets and irreplaceable antique quilt are fireproof as well. Anyway, that's all water under the bridge. The same water, in fact, that you threw the burning quilt into to put it out. Anywho, you're at the party, you notice an old friend walking towards you, and you start to panic. You've forgotten your friend's name. Now, when I say an old friend, I mean a friend you've had for a long time, not someone who's really old. Someone really old is not much of a problem because, 1, by the time they mosey on over to you with their walker, you'll have had time to go home, look up their name in your address book, then scurry on back to the party without them noticing. And 2, there's a good chance they've forgotten their name as well. I'm talking about someone with a good memory moving toward you at a brisk pace. What do? What do you do? Solution. There are a few possible solutions to the forgetting the name problem, and I'm not talking about ridiculous ones like pretending to faint, then claiming you don't speak English. That's not only silly, but it has been proven to not work after the incident when you set fire to your host's bedroom. One solution is to have the same nickname for everyone. That way, you only have to remember one name. The obvious problem with this is that during the throes of passion, you don't want to be yelling out, "Scooter!" or "Itchy!" A second solution is to say hi to your old friend, then immediately grab hold of a third person and say all innocent like, "You two know each other, right?" You wait for them to introduce themselves and sit back and relax. The problem with this is if the third person just answers, "No, I don't know this person." Now you find yourself in the doubly awkward position of having to introduce two people whose name you've forgotten, and don't get all smart with me and try to say that you know the other person's name. You don't. I mean, you could always just say, "Scooter, this is Itchy. Itchy, Scooter." But chances are that isn't going to work. The best solution? Say to her, "I'm sorry, remind me how you pronounce your name again?" To which she'll respond, "Kathy." Then you continue your very clever ruse by saying, "That's right, the emphasis is on the first syllable, Kathy. Yeah, I always think it's on the second, Kathy. I'm glad you corrected me, my old friend." Problem solved. Situation. Losing yourself in the middle of a conversation. There's a well-known saying that goes, "Wherever you go, there you are." It's a good saying except for one thing. It's just not true. The reason the saying is false is that when our minds are deprived of stimulation, they tend to wander. So yes, you may have gone someplace, but you're not there at all. You're somewhere else entirely. Probably trying to remember the words to the Armour Hot Dogs song. Now, the type of stimulation the brain needs is not something like being tickled with a feather. The mind is too mature to be amused by that. Not so the inside of your knees, which are always up for being tickled. The mind craves interesting conversation, which brings us back to the party and Kathy. Kathy, it turns out, is a bore, which I'm guessing is why you forgot her name in the first place. She's been talking at you for a long time about this and that, and you've just drifted off. Fat kids, skinny kids, even